What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about NFL head coaches that we believe are on the hot seat. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick. Well, we finally got the NFL schedules released. We had the draft. We've had free agency. At this point, rosters are pretty much set. I mean, there's a couple free agents that'll move, maybe a couple of trades that'll be made, but otherwise, most teams have the players that they're going to be going into mini camps with and training camp. And at this point, I think it's time to take a look at these rosters, take a look at the state of the teams, and kind of figure out where everyone sits. In today's video, I kind of want to focus on the head coaches. I want to focus on which coaches we believe are on the hot seat. And I want to start off with Mike Zimmer, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Mike Zimmer is one of the most respected NFL head coaches that we have in today's game, and what he brings to the table is nothing short of spectacular. The problem is he can't really get the most out of his players. He is not a person that has shined in the best of lights. He's not somebody that has gotten to the big game. You know, he got very close once, and that was pretty much it. At this point, it's starting to feel like a strenuous relationship with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that Mike Zimmer is, you know, if he can't find a way to not only get into the playoffs, but possibly even win this division, especially with everything that the Packers are going through, the Chicago Bears are still trying to figure out their quarterback situation. I think if he doesn't win the division, I think he might be out of a job.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close to that, and he's really hoping at this point Aaron Rodgers is long gone. He's praying that he'll be on Jeopardy soon enough because he needs him out of the division if he's going to keep his job. With Aaron Rodgers still in the division, his job becomes 10 times harder to not only do well in, but to actually keep his job. And so Mike Zimmer really needs to make sure that his team is sound throughout the offseason, getting ready for the regular season, and that they're ready to handle a 17-game season, something that no player has ever handled before in their career. So you've got to make sure they're conditioned properly. And Mike Zimmer, he was great for Cincinnati as their defensive coordinator. And then he came to Minnesota, had great success with the defense, but it's been diminishing over the years. And the talent has gone down. They've all left. They're out. So now he's got to retool the defense, use the weapons that they have, and if they can stay healthy, he's got to make sure that they perform because that's his forte. That's what he needs to do well in. And for them to really do well on defense means they're having success because their offense is solid. They're not an offense that's going to outscore the opposing offense by themselves. They're going to need a strong defense, and that really falls on the shoulders of Mike Zimmer. So he's got to make sure he's on top of his A game. This is a guy that has been under a little scrutiny for the last couple of years, and he's been holding on to his seat by the skin of his teeth. This is the year that finally proves whether he's here to stay or it's time for him to go. Now, another one that may be a little bit surprising is John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh has had great success over his tenure with the Baltimore Ravens, winning a Super Bowl, being an absolute leader for that franchise. But over the last couple of years, you've had Lamar Jackson, and has he improved? It's hard to tell. He hasn't had weapons, but Has the team really gone anywhere? No. You lost twice in the first round, and then you finally won a game in the playoffs, but then you lost right away in the second round. So where are you going? Is this team going to be able to compete in the next 5 years? It has the talent, but it's really up to John Harbaugh to get them the final way, and he hasn't been doing that. I believe that if you end up with another one and done playoff season, John Harbaugh may be on the outs because the owner is not going to handle a team where you have so much talent and so much potential, and it's all going by the wayside because the head coach is not getting them to where they need to be.
Yeah, John Harbaugh, that's a tough one to swallow, I'm gonna be honest, because I talked about Mike Zimmer being a very respected head coach. I mean, John Harbaugh, the Harbaugh name is well respected in the sport of football, and what he has done for the Baltimore Ravens franchise, getting them through some tough times on and off the field, what he has done just as a leader, as an organizer, as a human being, I think cannot be overshadowed and overlooked. But at the end of the day, that's all well and good, but his job is to win football games. And while he might be, you know, coming close with the Steelers for leading the division and still making the playoffs, at the end of the day, you gotta do something in the playoffs. You gotta make a push for the Super Bowl. That's what we're all here for. That's what the NFL is about. And he just hasn't been able to get that done, especially since Ray Lewis has been gone, since his on-field leader has been gone. He hasn't had the motivating factors on defense or on offense for that matter to really get the job done. So at this point, I think John Harbaugh's seat is getting just a little bit too warm for his liking. I don't expect him to get fired, but it wouldn't shock me if it actually happened. Moving on, I believe that Vic Fangio, the head coach of the Denver Broncos, will be the first head coach that we see get fired this year. I think it's almost a resolution, or it's a fact that he will get fired before the season ends this year, and simply because he is riding with either Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock. Teddy Bridgewater just got there, doesn't know the system, doesn't know the players, has no rapport with anyone. He is simply just somebody there to offset Drew Lock in training camp. Maybe he can win the job based on his skill set. Other than that, his job, Vic Fangio's job, truly rides or dies with Drew Lock. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think he's the guy that I'm going to war with. He's not the guy that I'm risking my job for. And at this point, Drew Lock has not shown me anything that shows me he's going to be 1000% improved to the point where he's going to be able to compete with the likes of Justin Herbert and the Chargers or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And that's just his division. We're not even talking about the rest of the AFC, where you have the Dolphins and you have the Colts and you have the Browns and all these other teams that you're going to have to compete with. I think that Vic Fangio's got a really hot seat here, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him gone by week 10 through 12.
Wow, I think that's a little bit early, but I do tend to agree with you. I believe that Vic Fangio probably has the hottest seat. And a guy who had another defensive coordinator who was spectacular with the Chicago Bears just doesn't seem to be able to keep that momentum going with his new team as the head coach. And he's been here for a few years, had multiple quarterbacks, and even guys who have a lot of potential, like Drew Lock, don't seem to flourish, don't seem to progress at all under Vic Fangio. And that's probably because he is a defensive coordinator. He doesn't know offense pretty much at all. And the guys he's bringing in to assist on offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, these guys just don't seem to be cut out. He doesn't have an eye for coaching talent, and it's clearly showing because this team, like you said, is not going anywhere and hasn't been going anywhere for a while. So I agree with you. Vic Fangio is definitely the hottest name to look out for. A guy that should have been fired last year, though, was Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy for the Chicago Bears was absolutely abysmal. You had Mitch Trubisky, then you brought in Nick Foles, abysmal choice, and then go back to Mitch Trubisky at the end of the season, and you barely make the playoffs by the skin of your teeth, and you get absolutely trounced by the New Orleans Saints in the most ridiculous fashion possible, with your quarterback being named the Nickelodeon Valuable Player at the end of it. It literally is a perfect sign of how the Chicago Bears play, how they're run. It's an absolute joke. It is literally a bunch of children running around on the field with no direction because their head coach has no idea what he's doing. Matt Nagy may have had some success as a coordinator and been good there, but he has proven absolutely nothing as a head coach. He's relied heavily on a very strong defense that has carried them into the playoffs time and time again. And now you've lost key pieces on that defense, specifically in the secondary. And I don't believe this defense is going to hold up as well as it has in the past. Your offense has barely gotten any better. You add Andy Dalton, who's probably the same as Mitch Trubisky, if not a little bit worse. So now where are you going here? Your offensive weapons have really stayed the same. You have Justin Fields in the wings, but I don't know if Matt Nagy's going to be around long enough for Justin Fields to save his job.
Yeah, Matt Nagy's a tough one, honestly, because the Chicago Bears last year definitely underperformed. I believe that Mitchell Trubisky was doing just fine as their quarterback. He was not really turning the ball over. He was playing sound football. He wasn't making spectacular plays by any stretch of the imagination, but he was doing what most coaches want. Play turnover-free football, move the chains, keep the ball on offense, and then, you score a couple of times and let your defense do the rest. And with Matt Nagy, it's supposed to be a lot more than that. He's supposed to be able to be much more than what he has shown in Chicago, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you have Khalil Mack, you have Akeem Hicks, you have some of these top-notch defensive players, all pros, Pro Bowl players that consistently do their job. They do everything for this team to help them win, and you're barely getting into the playoffs when the rest of the NFC is kind of up for grabs. You have an entire division in the NFC East that was really bottom of the rung last year, and you're barely ahead of some of those teams. So I think that there's a big issue with Matt Nagy, and he's got to find a way to turn this around, get a little juice back from his coordinator days, and hopefully he can find something to work with, whether it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton. The final coach I want to talk about today is going to be a major shock to everyone, and I believe that this is something that has to be talked about. But I believe one coach that's on a bit of a hot seat right now is New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. I believe Bill Belichick is in a situation where he wanted to choose Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of Tom Brady. Tom Brady showed him why he should have stayed there by winning a Super Bowl that same year that Garoppolo was traded to San Francisco. Then San Francisco wants to deal Garoppolo because he was not what they expected. So now it shows that, well, maybe Bill Belichick was wrong about that decision. Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay, wins the Super Bowl in his first year. Shows that, the fact that he couldn't get along with Tom Brady, the fact that their relationship had been altered and really been unrepairable, shows that maybe something needs to change. And at this point, if the Patriots have a losing season, if the Patriots are in a tough spot with all of the money that they spent this offseason, with everything that they've been able to do, I think that it's not that Robert Kraft will fire him, because that will never happen. I believe he may end up retiring. He may just leave the game of football and say, you know what? This game of football is not the game that I subscribed to back in the day. This isn't the game that I fell in love with. And at this point, I don't think I can offer my services any better. We've already called into question what he does in the draft, what his thoughts are on free agency. And now we're talking about it. Can he get this team going without the likes of Tom Brady at the helm? We'll see this year, but at this point, there's a big question mark in New England.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And what I look at is the owner, Robert Kraft, a guy who loves football to his core and is all about winning. And it pained him to see the Patriots have a losing season for the first time in over 20 years. And now that he's seen that and knows what it feels like to be there, he never wants to be there again. if Bill Belichick falls short once again and has another losing season, I believe that Robert Kraft could pull the strings on this one. He could say, Bill, you had a great career, but you're past your prime and it's time to move on. And he's got a guy in Josh McDaniels waiting in the wings to take over. And Robert Kraft is ready to do that if he has to. He doesn't want to, but I believe that Robert Kraft's willing to do anything it takes to get this franchise back up to where it used to be, because all he knows is winning, and that's all he wants to know.
Let me preface this point by saying this. I do not believe the Patriots will have a losing season. I believe that Bill Belichick still knows what he's doing. I still believe that he's the best head coach in football history, not just NFL. And I believe that he is going to turn this team around. Will they make the playoffs? That's up for debate. Will they have a winning record? Yeah, I believe so. I believe that when you were handed a team that had the most opt-outs during the COVID-ridden season, when you're given a quarterback change that you haven't had to deal with in over 20 years, and you're bringing in a quarterback that is completely different than the guy you used to run with, doesn't know the system, has to learn it with no offseason, no training camp, no nothing. He had it about 4 weeks before the season started. Then he got COVID. I think there was a lot of issues that happened with the Patriots, and they still ended at 7-9. I mean, they were right there. They were right at right under the 500 mark. So at this point, I think the Patriots are in a better spot than people realize. I don't expect him to go anywhere. I don't expect any of this to happen, but the groundwork is starting to get laid. If it does happen, Robert Kraft is going to be in a situation where he has to start making some tough decisions. All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.